Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Said Dan channel. David Schwartz, Ripple CTO, co-creator of XRP and the XRP Ledger, says that federal judges are now feeling the frustration that people have been feeling with the SEC. And no one in the world of crypto, no community in the world of crypto has been feeling that frustration more intensely or longer than we here in the XRP community. Now, in the neighborhood of 2.5 years, we've been putting up with all the jackassery from the asshat pricks at the SEC. The good news is, at least in theory, this is going to be over for us soon. Probably with good news, at least as it pertains to secondary market transactions for XRP. But for most others in crypto, the journey is just beginning. And it's not a fun one. And I've long said that anybody that comes in as a blank slate and just learns the facts and the arguments that the SEC has been putting forth against XRP and pick your crypto, really. If you just come in and hear both sides, you're going to come to the conclusion that the SEC is not operating in good faith. And that's why the SEC has been getting called out in case after case after case, where they're talking about the Ripple lawsuit or Voyager or Coinbase or Grayscale. The SEC, I'm just telling you, they're showing their true colors. And if they thought that judges wouldn't be able to sniff that out, that they're not being intellectually honest and operating in good faith, well, they were mistaken there. And so David Schwartz had some stuff to say. I'm going to share with you everything that he put out in this particular topic and in full context. And attorney John Deaton chimed in and said that, quote, "The court is calling the SEC's bluff," end quote, referencing, of course, the judge. And this as it pertains to some the latest developments in the SEC v. Coinbase lawsuit. I've actually got perspective from several attorneys that I'll share with you in this video. But before breaking it down, I do want to be clear, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. Now, first, let me do a little bit of table setting, and even if you remember the specifics, you might think, well, my table set, son, I don't need this. Just sit tight with me because I think this is going to flow in a much more powerful manner if you let me share just a couple of key things here before jumping into the perspective from David Schwartz and the attorneys within our community here. Because there was something, and this is actually somewhat divisive amongst some of the attorneys within our community. Some think that the latest development that occurred yesterday evening was a win for Coinbase. Some dispute that. But I'll just note, given the peculiar circumstances surrounding Coinbase's move, because mind you, yes, the SEC sued Coinbase a couple weeks ago, but don't forget, back in April, it was actually Coinbase that sued the SEC first. And the circumstances here are definitely peculiar, but that's why this most recent development that we learned about last night, which I'll be getting into, is viewed by many as a win, frankly. So there's this headline from April 25th this year from Reuters. Frustrated Coinbase tries rare maneuver to compel SEC to clear up crypto murkiness. Yeah, that's one hell of a headline because they're almost burying the lead there by wording it like that, because this is a story about Coinbase suing the SEC and under circumstances that normally wouldn't be perceived as normal. Piece reads as follows. Is 9 months an unreasonable amount of time to wait for regulatory action? Coinbase Inc. contends that it is. In a new appellate petition that marks the cryptocurrency exchange's latest attempt to force the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission to provide the industry with a clear set of rules and regulations instead of policing crypto through enforcement actions. Coinbase, which disclosed last month that it is in the SEC's crosshairs, is asking the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to order the SEC to respond to its July 2022 petition imploring the agency to propose and adopt rules to govern the regulation of securities that are offered and traded via digitally native methods. So what happened is in July of last year, the SEC was looking for some specific guidance from the SEC as it pertains to crypto. The SEC is just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, not responding, and Coinbase decided, to their credit, they've had enough of that, and they decided to get a bit proactive. And so they filed the writ, which is a lawsuit against the SEC, basically trying to, just asking the judge, could you please just make these pricks over at the SEC just do their damn jobs? That's what they're really trying to get at here. And the circumstance is a little bit peculiar, though, so check this out. Suing to force a federal agency to speed up rulemaking is quite unusual, as Coinbase Chief Legal Officer Paul Graywall acknowledged in a blog post about the mandamus petition, which was filed on Monday night. It's even more unusual, based on the precedent cited by Coinbase counsel from Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher in the mandamus petition, to ask an appeals court to intervene a mere 9 months after a formal request for agency action. In the rare instances in which regulated businesses have persuaded appellate courts to order federal agencies to respond to their rulemaking petitions, the allegedly unreasonable delay has been a matter of years, not months. And so here, the point that's being made, and it's certainly not lost on me, is that it's not completely unheard of for a writ to be filed to ask a court to intervene to make a government agency just do their damn job. But it is very peculiar to take that step after just 9 months. But, Coinbase's perspective is effectively, it's not the length that matters, but the reasons behind the lack of action, which is, it's still, I think, is a fair point. But the reason I wanted to be sure to highlight that is because Coinbase got a win here. And this is why some people are viewing it as, whoa, I thought that this whole thing was just going to get thrown out. Thought it was going to get dismissed. But it wasn't. It looks like the judge, at least to this point, is looking past perspectives and arguments made by the SEC and kind of holding their feet to the fire effectively. So take a look at this. So this is the latest here. There's this comment last night from Paul Graywall, that's Coinbase's chief legal officer. And he shared the screen grab. We'll make it full screen here. I don't need to read it. You can if you want to pause here, but I just want to share with you what Paul Graywall wrote. And so it says it's the order from the judge in the case, Cheryl Ann Krause. And Paul Graywall wrote, "The Third Circuit just ruled that it will retain jurisdiction over our challenge to the SEC's inaction on our petition for basic rules for crypto. A further report is due in 120 days. We are grateful that the court will continue to shine a bright light on an SEC process that, until now, has operated entirely in darkness." And so the thrust of this is, rather than dismissing this thing outright, the court here decided, okay, well, ball's in your court, SEC. You have 120 days to respond to this damn thing. And so attorney John Deaton retweeted that, and he says, "This forces the SEC to provide a real update on October 11th. The court is calling the SEC's bluff. The court could have dismissed, but chose to exercise continuing jurisdiction." Okay, so now I hope you can see why I wanted to go through a little bit of table setting there, just to point out just how unique a situation this is, how easy it would have been for the judge to throw this out, but the judge did not throw this out, despite the fact that they sued the SEC after 9 months after filing that document. 9 months. That is interesting. That is something. Now, David Schwartz responded to this whole thing, and he actually wrote to Paul Graywall here and said, on Twitter, he said, "This is kind of a roller coaster." Yeah, so you see, David Schwartz kind of seems to have somewhat mixed feelings here, but I appreciate his perspective, so check this out. He says, "The court insisted the SEC tell it when the commission was going to rule on Coinbase's request. Yay. But then let the SEC get away with taking 4 months just to update the court on just their progress towards getting a staff recommendation. To be fair, I think everyone was expecting Coinbase to get nothing at all out of this. Frankly, I considered it a public stunt at first. So in that light, this is a victory. I guess the most positive spin I can put on it is that the fact that Coinbase was successful in getting any relief at all is likely an indication that at least some of our frustration with the SEC is shared by at least one more federal judge and maybe lots more federal judges." Okay, that sounds correct to me. That's pretty well how I look at this. Because, honestly, I was glad. So I was glad that Coinbase was taking this action against the SEC. I love it. when firms in our space get a bit proactive, because normally, our firms are just reactive here. So I appreciated seeing that. Now, that being said, I wasn't convinced that anything at all was going to come from this. And I don't know if anything ultimately meaningful will come from this. But the fact that this wasn't thrown out immediately it's got to indicate something here. I think that these judges are aware of the SEC's current tactics and the degree to which they're not operating in good faith. And if that weren't the case, and if it weren't so well known at this point, I wonder if an action like this would have gotten serious consideration from this particular judge. It makes me wonder. So Attorney John Deaton retweeted that from David Schwartz, and Deaton wrote, "It's the cumulative effects that eventually caused Gensler to become a political liability in an election year, nonetheless, causing his potential ouster and a less aggressive approach to the space." And then you have attorney Bill Morgan of the XRP community. He retweeted David Schwartz also, and he said, "Definitely a victory for Coinbase. Another example of the SEC not getting the easy win in crypto-related legal proceedings it was previously achieving." Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm seeing here is that judges, they're aware of what other judges are dealing with in other cases. And I just keep seeing in case after case after case, like these judges, they must be going into this thinking, okay, what the hell are these little SEC attorney hellspawns gonna bring at me today? They've got to be wondering that. And then when they see it, they just get irritated and frustrated. And that's what we see in all of these cases that we've been talking, all the big ones, which I cited earlier in the video that we've been talking about this year. The SEC, man, the judges, all the judges in these cases, they're bringing the heat and pushing back against the SEC, not the defendants. It's very telling. And so that's why I'm saying, again, here, this is what happens when you become known as a government agency that is not operating in good faith. You get pushback, and it looks to me like that's probably what's occurring here. But not everyone agrees, and that's fine. I appreciate thoughtful discourse and perspective on this. Attorney Fred Rispoli had the following to say about this. "I'll never give you spin. This was a straight-up loss for Coinbase. To be fair, this entire suit is theater. The Third Circuit gave SEC exactly what it wanted, 120 days for staff to give the commission its recommendation. In its reply brief, June 13th, Coinbase argued for immediate judicial review now. If not, it asked the court to set a 60-day deadline for the commission, not the staff, to make a decision. It also argued the periodic reports were illusory. The Third Circuit did not dismiss outright, but gave SEC all it wanted otherwise." Yeah, so those are perfectly fair and reasonable points. I guess it's just kind of, a big part of it is like, what were your expectations going in this? For me, I had about zero expectations. So getting anything, I'm just like, hell yeah, all right. But his points aren't lost on me. All this stuff, again, asking for 60 days and then it's 120. So the SEC has all that time, and then it's the staff, not something directly from the commission itself technically. I get it. Fair enough points. Here's what Attorney James Murphy had to say, and he had a little back and forth conversation here with Attorney Rispoli. So Attorney James Murphy, known as Meta Lawman on Twitter, wrote, "On balance, this is good news for Coinbase. The Third Circuit has ordered the SEC to update the court on whether it has decided to grant Coinbase's petition for rulemaking in October. If the SEC says that it hasn't decided by then, the odds swing in favor of Coinbase." And then Attorney Rispoli responded and said, "Would you consider this a loss for Coinbase, though? Aside from dismissing the case, the Third Circuit gave SEC everything they asked for and none of what Coinbase requested. Based on the 120-day deadline for a staff decision, this easily goes to 2024 before anything substantive happens, in my opinion." And Attorney Murphy responded and said, "I do think the continued pendency of this case helps Coinbase in the more important enforcement case. Every brief will point out the SEC still refuses to say whether it will engage in rulemaking. Lack of clarity is an SEC strategy Same in your case against the SEC. Yeah, and so I'll pause a note, and I'm sure many of you are aware. Attorney Rispoli has a couple of lawsuits outstanding against Coinbase and the SEC, actually. And they're important. So Attorney Murphy here, though, is pointing out this strategy. It's well known. It's well known, the lack of clarity, and that's why everybody points it out, and that is true here. And so the point that it's very clear Attorney Murphy is making here is that even if you look on the points that Attorney Rispoli brought up, which are fair, Coinbase really didn't get a lot of stuff that they were looking for. The fact that this thing is still existing, I think the point that Attorney Murphy is making is that that's going to help the Coinbase in their lawsuit where the SEC is suing them. So I get it. It's just like it can be. It's all about. You see what I said? Like it's all about just perspective and expectations. Frame of reference. And then Attorney Rispoli responded to Attorney Murphy and said, "True. At the end of the day, the Third Circuit did not dismiss the case, and I guess even though the delay is long, that is the win. Which, as you state, I would also celebrate as a huge win if Hodl Law, so that's his law firm, gets past the motion to dismiss." And then Attorney Murphy said, "Good luck, Fred. I don't think people fully appreciate the importance of your case against the SEC seeking a court declaration that ETH is not a security. Getting past the SEC's motion to dismiss would be a huge win." Yep, so coming at him from all sorts of angles here. That's why I guess for me, subjectively, I'd state, yeah, I think it's still a win, but again, from my point of view, I wasn't really expecting anything, and so acknowledging everything that Attorney Rispoli said was true in terms of Coinbase not getting specific things they asked for, the fact that they even got this and it can strengthen their case, to me, that's a win. So I'll just take that. You guys can let me know what you think. It's subjective, so there's no right or wrong answer, really. Just let me know what you think, though. Let's keep the conversation going. But I think it's fantastic to see all of these judges, because the SEC has a reputation now of just not operating in good faith. And I think it makes, for any case that's brought forth moving forward, these judges are going to know. I just think it makes more likely that the SEC is going to have a harder and harder time, and they're going to get away with less and less crap. That's just speculation on my part, but that's what it looks like to me, because otherwise, how do you have this big string of cases this year that just isn't going so well for the SEC? Come on. Something's going on here. It's the SEC not acting in good faith, and judges calling them on it. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.